Tron Ares is out in theaters, third part of the Tron franchise, but it might well have been the second one because it largely ignores the events and characters of Tron Legacy, telling its own new story following the first film. This is directed by Joachim Röning, stars Jared Leto, Greta Lee, Jeff Bridges, Evan Peters, Jodie Turner-Smith, and Gillian Anderson. Original score by Nine Inch Nails. The story is about two rival tech companies working on AI and bringing digital constructs, objects, vehicles, weapons, and even programs looking like people from the digital world called the grid back into the real world. Evan Peters is the CEO of one of them, and he's struggling with a time limitation. About 29 minutes after he 3D prints anything, it essentially disintegrates. It is unstable. Greta Lee is his rival, and she manages to figure out the solution to the problem, so he sends Ares after her. This is Jared Leto, a deadly security program slash super soldier, but he develops sentience and decides he wants the permanence code for himself instead to, become a real boy. So I have to say this was not a good film in the slightest, not even close. I didn't have high expectations going in because honestly, I didn't like any of the previous two movies. I appreciate the first one as being very influential in terms of ideas and visual effects, and the second had some cool visuals and some banging music by Daft Punk. But on the whole, they're not really good movies. However, Ares is the weakest of them all. The only things it has going for it are the visuals and the music. On the visual side, we obviously have the grid and the light bikes, which are always endlessly cool to look at. This time they're moved into the real world as well, which gives us some nice chase sequences in a big city. There's also an entire section of the film taking place in an older 1980s version of the grid, which looks fantastic and is essentially just a jump back in time to the very first film. And when it comes to the music, the score from Nine Inch Nails is probably not as good as the Daft Punk one for Legacy, but still really, really cool. A great mix of industrial heavy rock and electronic music. I love that. So unfortunately, everything else sucks. First of all, the writing is terrible. This is a very simplistic, shallow, and unoriginal film when it comes to the ideas it explores, tropes it follows, and depth it allows itself to go. Like from the first moment the characters are established, you know perfectly where each of them will end up, what the journey will be. There is zero surprise or nuance. There are two companies that are set up as completely black and white. One wants the grid construct to supply military equipment and soldiers. The other one wants to cure cancer and solve world hunger. Like, what? Is it really that simple? Couldn't we have at least a little nuance or gray area? I think there are some clunky contrivances in the film. Like at the beginning, Greta Lee finds the code on a backup server in a tent in Alaska after 3 months of meticulously searching through old floppy disks. But then she loses it, and it turns out she can just get a copy from the actual server, which is literally located in her office in the city she lives in. Or the giant flying gate thing in the final act, which was heavily marketed in the trailers. I get that it looks kind of cool and ominous, but the character using it has one goal: find and capture a person that is escaping and bring that person back to base in 29 minutes. If you're flying a giant, slow ship that can't fit between city buildings and can't chase a person on foot and can't really get back on time, what is even the point? There are some really good actors in this film giving really one-note performances. Greta Lee is just flat. Gillian Anderson is trying her best, but is given very little to work with. And Evan Peters goes balls to the wall in being a cartoonish villain. And then there's the biggest problem in the entire movie, which is, of course, Jared Leto. I mean, he is and has been for a long time, a really strange and creepy dude. And then you had all his nonsense behavior on sets, like sending used condoms to his co-stars on Suicide Squad. Then the rumors about him essentially being a cult leader and fucking underage fans of his band. And this year you had actual allegations of sexual assault coming to light, and yet he's still leading a massive Disney film, which is kind of a head scratcher. Apparently, I've read a rumor, I don't know if it's true, but apparently Leto has always been obsessed with two sci-fi franchises, Blade Runner and Tron, and he desperately wanted to be in them both. He did appear in Blade Runner 2049, and then he was very involved in developing Tron Ares from very early on in pre-production. He was one of the driving forces behind even getting this film off the ground, which means he couldn't exactly be separated from the film last minute. But well, the result is what it is, and it's a very cold, detached, off-putting performance. Leto goes robot program so far that he is deeply unsympathetic and kind of inhuman. Like he has the same expression on his face the entire movie with this dead look in his eyes, which of course makes it incredibly difficult to sympathize with his character or be invested in his journey. Now, the big question to me is whether Tron Ares would be a good movie with someone else in the lead role. Um, I think it would not. It would certainly be much better, but the writing and direction problems would still persist and drag it down to being what it is, which is a shallow, derivative, clunky film. One anecdote that I saved for the end, and this is by far my favorite thing about this whole affair. This is taken from the IMDb trivia page, and I have no idea if it's real, but based on what I know about both people in it, it sounds 100% plausible, and I choose to believe it's true. So get this. Jared Leto, this is a quote, Jared Leto spent the entire shoot in character as Ares, not speaking to anyone unless necessary and having everyone refer to him as such. Of course he would, because that's what he does, but this is the gold stuff. Jeff Bridges was the only one who didn't follow this rule, reasoning that since his character, Kevin Flynn, is the creator of the grid, he's therefore above Ares and could call him whatever he wanted. This is brilliant. The dude himself refusing to engage in Leto's bullshit. I love it. Anyway, to sum all of this up, it is certainly a stylish, visually and musically interesting frame that holds a disappointingly empty substance inside. I thought it was a complete waste of time, and I expect to start forgetting it exists a few days from now. Do yourself a favor and skip it.